Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started in just a moment. Thank you all for joining us. I am looking forward to sharing with you this morning. Just a couple minutes, just 1 minute actually, to the top of the hour, and then we'll get started. If you're just logging on now, I had mentioned that it'll be somewhat of an informal webinar. We'll share stories and information, but we set it up as a Zoom. So if you have questions, you can put those in the chat window, and just ask that you keep your mics on mute until there is an opportunity towards the end for Q&A. So it's 10 o'clock. And I am excited, like I said, that we have several people joining us, and there will be several others who have sent us requests asking for a recording. So we'll be posting a recording of this webinar on our Dakota Wesleyan website shortly after the recording. It'll probably be posted by the end of today, if not by tomorrow. And so you can log in there, and we'll share it with email addresses if we have those from you. So again, welcome. Thanks for joining. I'm Alicia Vincent. I'm the Associate Provost here at Dakota Wesleyan University, and I'm also the Program Director for the Practical Church Leadership Program. This morning, we're going to be sharing information and stories about Dakota Wesleyan University's program, formerly known as the Nonprofit Church Leadership Program. Recently, we made the shift to Practical Church Leadership. I am a fan of calling things like it is, and that's really what this program is all about, is providing practical, relevant, and applied experiences for scholars and clergy persons serving in ministry contexts all throughout the United States. At the conclusion of today's session, there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions. And so if you want, as we're going along today, if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the comments area. And Andrea, who is assisting me this morning, will be keeping track of those. And you can direct your questions to either of the guests who will be joining me, and I'll introduce them as we go. All right, so now I would like to start with a brief overview of the Practical Church Leadership Program. Still getting used to the title change. Dakota Wesleyan created this program about 4 years ago in partnership with our friends from the Dakotas and Minnesota's areas of the United Methodist Church, as a way to support clergy and ministry leaders who are serving in churches and contexts all throughout the US, helping them to gain knowledge, skills, and abilities in things like financial development and administration, areas they often don't receive a lot of formal training in seminary or other theological training programs. And so we saw a gap there, and we decided to create this program as a way to meet that need. And it's gone very, very well. We've seen a lot of growth in the program. We've made a lot of adjustments and changes to make sure that the program meets the needs of the regions that we're serving. And now the program is serving alongside pastors and ministry leaders in states like South Dakota, Minnesota, North Dakota, Michigan, Iowa, St. Louis, or sorry, not St. Louis, that's not a state, Missouri, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. And we look forward to continued growth in the program. We're also now working with denominations, including the Methodist Church, the Episcopal denomination we're hoping to bring in. Bishop Foltz is joining us this morning. The ELCA, members of the ELCA have participated with us for the last several years, and we're looking forward to having some folks from the Presbyterian denomination with us in the 2022 cohort as well. So we believe that the program is ecumenical and does a great job of meeting needs no matter where you're at and no matter what ministry context you're serving in. Practical Church Leadership is a 21 graduate credit hour program. And those 21 graduate credit hours are transcripted, and so students receive a transcript at the end of the program and a certificate of completion as a graduate of the Practical Church Leadership Program. We also have 3 face-to-face gatherings on campus and in regional context. Those gatherings are 2 days meant to really bolster leadership development for the pastors and clergy persons serving. So we have 3 face-to-face gatherings. We feature 5 7-week courses. So those 5 7-week courses are online, very flexible. Students can take those courses and complete those courses mostly asynchronously, with some synchronous live discussions or live events that happen, live lectures that happen rather, on occasion. But those content area courses, the 7-week classes, cover areas including financial development, financial management, governance and human resource management, strategy and evaluation, communications, and community outreach. And so you can imagine all of the administrative knowledge and skills that are gained through those courses, not only in the area of content and knowledge, but our pedagogy in those classes is one that we feature applied learning. And so all of the professors and instructors directing those courses do encourage students to apply the learning to their ministry context, and oftentimes assignments will be applied as well. Another distinguishing feature of the program is that participants complete a applied project, at least one, in some cases two applied projects. You think of these more like a capstone experience that scholars might engage. And so they work with their congregations to think about an applied project that they can build and carry out over the course of an entire year. And those, of course, have measurable impact on both the ministry leader and in the congregations that they're serving. Clergy persons have done projects including financial development projects, capital campaigns, strategic plans, comprehensive strategic plans. They've overhauled governance structures and so much more. We'll tell you about a couple of those stories momentarily. And another great feature of the program is that every scholar in the program is paired with a professionally trained coach. And Bill Lewis, our coaching coordinator, will talk about that a little bit later in the webinar this morning. But over and over again, pastors say that the coaching feature in this program is really one of those that sets it apart. And pastors feel comprehensively supported throughout the duration of the program. Over the course of the last 4 years, we've been keeping track of the impact of the program, and we've done that through a variety of different surveys. So I'm going to show you just briefly here an image that represents the impact of the program. Okay, so what I'm showing you here is the self-reported confidence levels from participants in the program. What we do is we have them self-report how confident they think they are in a lot of the areas that we address throughout the one-year program. And as you can see from this chart, if you're looking, those two back-to-back. So for example, the first one on the left of your screen is a pre and post survey related to confidence levels in raising funds. At the beginning of the program, over and over again, pastors report that their confidence in fundraising is not great. And so that's represented by that blue line. And then at the completion of the program, you can see that confidence level shifting. And the majority of participants either say they are now somewhat confident or very confident in those areas. And that trend continues throughout many of the thematic areas that we cover in the program: financial development, managing funds, human resource management, solving conflicts and problems, and leading strategic planning initiatives. So there's a lot more. We've conducted and produced impact reports the last several years related to the program. I'm happy to share those with you after this if you have additional questions. So that is enough of me boasting about the program. Of course, I'm biased, and I've been leading the program now since inception. It truly has been one of the great joys of my professional career, really feeling like we are making a difference in the kingdom, and it matters a lot to me. But I would like you to hear from participants and others who have been closely engaged with practical church leadership. One of those is Elsie Quintanilla Perez. And Elsie is currently serving as a pastor at Zion Church in St. Louis, Missouri. So Elsie, thank you so much for joining us. Elsie, my question for you this morning is, how did the program help you develop as both a leader and an administrator?
Okay, good morning, everybody. This helped me a lot because when I had my appointment, I was working with Hispanic ministries. And then I was working with the Anglo Church. And when I came here, with a new baby, I was really excited, but I was really lost about what to do and that. So I got this challenge, and then the pandemic came 6 months later. So could you imagine what's happening at that time? And I didn't know how to do. And then I started the classes, and was like a gift from God, because this helped me to give me tools, and every class was just put in one when another one to help me what to do. At that time, we have time to rethink about our mission and vision in the church, and like a applied project was the first thing that I did. We will do the mission and vision of the church, and at the beginning was just like, oh, okay, we will work just for my homework, and a little team from my church started to work with me, and then we think about it, we rethink about what we are doing at the church. And the funny thing is that when I finished the applied project, we finished all the work, and they said, now what? We need to continue this. We won't be here and just stop in that way. So I have a really good team starting to work with me and to work with me during that time, and we did it. And we have a really good food distribution every week for 500 people, and engaging with the community. And the community was coming, was helping to us, and they're giving contributions, and some of the people stay at the church. Also, we have several activities to engage the community to join us and know about the church and everything, and they were there all the time. And that's helped me a lot, because my coach was in contact with me at least every 15 days. And that's helped me, because they was telling me, Elsie, I think that this is not good, or maybe you can do it in another way. And one day I didn't what he said, and that was the big mistake. So that's helped me a lot to understand the way that we can work together. And at this time, my church is really engaged with the community. They are really engaged with the church, and they give that same spirit to the complete church, because they start to share what we were doing, and they are really excited to work. And I'm talking about a church that is a small church, and also they are elder people, and they are working, and they are doing the best, and they are trying to bring new people and everything. So that helped me. That program was a blessing for me. It helped me a lot to do everything that I am, and that is why I say, okay, I think that I'm going to finish the MBA, and that is why I'm here.
Awesome. Elsie, one last question for you. What would you tell a clergy person who is contemplating whether or not they want to dive into this program?
Oh, just do it. Just do it, because in some way you will have a lot of opportunities to learn about finance, about administration, about the important thing is that it's not your theory. It's a complementation between theory and practice, and you don't have that in other places. And it's going to be theory, practice, and in that way you will have a result all the time.
Thank you so much. Having Elsie in the program has been fantastic. Repeatedly got messages from instructors and coaches what a joy having Elsie in the program has been. And so we're grateful for you and the way that you lead in your church. It is really impressive. So thank you so much for your time this morning, Elsie, and stay on the call in case folks have questions for you in a little bit.
Okay.
I'd also like to introduce you to Corey Thrall. So Corey has been serving, actually he's at a 3-point charge in North Dakota, serving at Washburn Center, and he's a church planter. And so wearing a lot of hats, in addition to administrator and confidant and pastor and all of the things that Corey does. So thank you so much, Corey, for joining us this morning. Like Elsie had mentioned, and over again, we know that one of the major differentiators and blessings of this program, and also challenging things, is the applied projects. And so, Corey, if you would like share for just a moment about your applied project experience and how it benefited you and others.
The applied project in asking God for guidance came about because we had seen a gap in age of people coming to church. And this was at the time I was serving a rural community, Washburn Center in Hazen. And these communities are 1,500 or 500 and 2,100 in population. And we were missing some people in certain age gaps. And when we looked at who these people were and why they weren't coming, we realized that Sunday morning hour just was either taken up by family time or other things were going on, but their entire lives centered around their phone. They spent a lot of time on their phone in the digital world, and they were very comfortable there. So my applied project was to create an online church. And here's what I found out about applied projects is that I have an idea for an applied project. I lay it out and the coach and everybody approves it. And then God says, let me see what I can do with this. And so what started out as this idea to create an online church, God took and just exponentially exploded it. When I had told my district superintendent, he told the cabinet, and then next thing you know, I was teaching classes for the Minnesota and Dakotas district about how to do online worship. And then it went from there to it's now a template that's being used for rural congregations to gather together and create one area, an online church where several rural congregations can take turns putting in content to reach those who are not going to step into the church, but who are very comfortable digitally clicking on and getting content that way, and reaching people for Christ that way. It's just incredible what God did with this project that started out with, how can we reach those in our community who aren't coming?
Corey, it was and continues to be an impressive project, and I know that the impact of that has, spilled out beyond what you had hoped it would as well. And I think recognition for the work that you've done has happened beyond practical church leadership too. So thank you for that work. Like my question to Elsie, Corey, what advice would you give to clergy persons who might be considering participating in this program?
Most of the things I learned in this program were not in seminary, and they cannot be gleaned necessarily from books. I had the opportunity to interact with experts in each of these fields that taught me not only the nuggets of what I needed to know, but the application of those things. And each thing that I learned was applicable at the moment. It wasn't some idea that could be, well, maybe when I grow my church to 1 million, I could do this. It was something that I could do right now. So I could turn around in a board meeting and say, okay, guys, I just learned this. You're part of my homework. And you'd be amazed how a board responds when you tell them, hey, would you help me with my homework? And you can implement things that you learned just that week and grow the strength administratively, spiritually, and leadership wise within your people immediately. You don't get this in seminary. This is the only place you can get this. So I recommend everybody take this.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Corey. And again, if you have questions for Corey, you can private message Corey. He can respond on the chat, or you can put them for everybody to see, and we will address those at the conclusion of the call. So I'm going to change gears and talk now. You've heard about the applied projects, about the practical and relevant ways that we do course learning in those 7-week classes. And now I want to talk a little bit more about the coaching component. Like we've said before, the participants in this program love their coaches, and the coaching program is really special. We have built that intentionally, wanting the coaches to support these pastors as they march towards the completion of those applied projects. They serve as both accountability partner, mentor, friend, confidant. And so we're so pleased to have Bill Lewis leading our coaching efforts. And I've invited Bill to join us this morning to talk a little bit more about coaching and why it is a significant differentiator. So Bill.
Well, good morning. And much like what Alicia mentioned, I am biased. I'm going to put it right there. I'm biased about coaching. And I've witnessed it even back to my Little League days and my floundering baseball days, but I've witnessed coaching in Fortune 50 companies. I've witnessed it in nonprofit settings, and there's nothing like this. with this program. We have the evidence to back it up. What I want to share with you is if I give you one thing to think about regarding the coaching and the coaches, in their bloodstream is the term serving others. There's no doubt about it. These coaches are not doing this for the recognition, the money, getting rich and famous, none of that. They're doing this because they're seasoned, they want to make a difference, and if you will, to be cliche, they've told me they feel a call to be doing this kind of work with their expertise. This is the 4th year that we've had this program. The coaching has been part of all of the old nonprofit church leadership, now the practical church leadership program since the beginning. And at the end of 2018, 2019, the pilot year, Alicia alluded earlier to an impact study. I kept this because it is my go-to when people ask me, tell me about the coaching philosophy. I'm going to read an excerpt, and I don't like my picture. I don't like talking about me, but I want to talk about this program. Here's what I said then, which applies now. What I believe has been established in the program is a trifecta of adult learning success. Quality curriculum content. Let me pause. You can get that from just about any educational experience, quality curriculum and content. Applied projects for application in the church, taking what you're learning and doing something with it. And coaching support for growth and development. The coaching piece is, in many ways, the secret sauce. Most educational experiences provide content and curriculum. Most also can look to application in various ways, at least encouraging a student to give it a try. But in the case of this program, the students are not alone. With the coach, they have a safety net, a place where they can talk about their day-to-day, as well as the applied project itself and putting it into application. A place to be mindful of the realities that hit them time after time, day after day, and a chance to grow and consider possibilities, both personally and professionally in their development. Coaching can appear to provide the answers when they don't even know what the questions may be. That was in 2018 and 2019. Think what's happened to our world since then. Many of our coaches were right, many of our students were right, many of our scholars were right in the throes of civil unrest following George Floyd's murder. All of our students, our scholars, have been in the throes of COVID. You heard Corey and Elsie talking about the difference it made in that moment. But what I think about, and what I think is the differentiator that the coaching brings, is summed up by a recent quote from one of our this year scholars in the program. Part of my role is to check in with them on how things are going and what could make it better. And unsolicited, this student, this scholar, gave me this quote. It's been surprisingly, this is a this year student, remember that. It's been surprisingly positive, as I didn't know much about this coaching aspect, and I felt I would approach it with a very narrow focus. But it's been far broader than that and very helpful. With the challenges I have had with a new ministry setting, I guess what this means is this pastor was just probably appointed. It's been very helpful and broader on how to establish myself as a leader in the moment. It goes far beyond what I expected. What I would leave you with is this about the coaching. It's about application. I don't want to give you a bunch of smoke and mirror. Our work is about applying the learning and supporting that application. A dedicated coach arrives for each one of the scholars. They have that coach that on a regular basis, they have a chance to work with. But more than that, what I think I'm realizing maybe for just the first time, its impact this year is, as Alyssa mentioned, they're comprehensively supported. What I think that means is this. We have coaches accredited and certified as executive coaches. We have a coach who is versed chapter and A to Z on project management, one around conflict management, one around change management, one around heart math, which is the connection of heart to head. We have a stable of resources that give these students, these scholars, not just that one regular coach, but on-call type of expertise that they just aren't going to find anywhere else. So what I would leave you with is that quote I just read to you. from this year's scholar that it goes beyond what I expected. That's in their own words, not Bill's.
Thank you, Bill. And Bill has done a great job leading this program and building up and training the coaches and offering that kind of wisdom and support that I'm sure we can't find anywhere else. Thank you, Bill. We also have several partners joining us today, including Deb Davis from Louisiana, Mark Struckhoff from Missouri, and Diane Owen. Diane Owen is the Director of Programs with the Dakotas and Minnesota area of the UMC. And Diane and I have worked together on this program since the beginning and co-creation together. Partnerships are essential to helping us ensure that what we are doing here matters and meets the needs of the congregations and communities. Partners also work to help provide financial support and other guidance to participants. Diane, thank you for joining us this morning. And I have a question for you. My question is this: having partnered with Dakota Wesleyan to support students for the last 4 years, in what ways have you seen benefits from the churches or benefits to the churches and the communities that are served in your region?
Well, thank you for inviting me. I have a lot of ownership about this program. As you know, I went into Dakota Wesleyan to the university with a list of competencies. I'm like, our pastors need this. They don't have these. What can we do about it? And it was amazing what unfolded. What we know today is that our pastoral leaders and what is needed in an excellent pastoral leader has changed, right? Or needs to be changing if it hasn't changed yet. And the reason that this is so critical is because today's church needs to change as well. And I have seen story after story of how pastors that have left this program have been able to make a difference in their local church and in their community. It's not just about pouring into the pastor so that they can learn and have that own personal development that they hold within. This is what the church needs in order to move forward in today's world, is a competent and leader who looks differently, a strategic leader. So there's some stories of one of our young female pastors, fairly new in ministry, who was part of this program, who goes into their local church that is really struggling financially, has the scarcity mentality. First of all, the church finance committee looks at this young female like, well, what do you know about, finances, right? And because of the program, she was able to confidently, and that is a key word and throughout this whole program, confidently examine the finances, find ways to release and unleash resources that helped put that church on stable footing. She would not have been able to do that with confidence and with competence had she not experienced this program. And this was in a small rural church. And we know the tensions and the struggles there. I had another pastor who would tell me the story about his readiness for ministry and mission in the community, needing funding, and how he knew that this large donor wanted to meet with him. And he was somewhat terrified about that opportunity to meet with this donor. And because of this program, he learned how to be ready for the possibility that he would have a conversation with a large donor who would actually ask him, Pastor, what would you do if I offered you $100,000 for ministry today? That actually happened. That happened because the pastor was becoming more confident in how he presented himself when it came to resources and living into mission and ministry. That donor gave that $100,000 because he knew how to answer the question. This is what we would do with $100,000. He understood how to speak to the passion of the donor, what interested that donor, as well as the strategies and the mission of that church. And that was pretty amazing when I heard that story. He had tears in his eyes. We all would like that opportunity. We have another story of a pastor who was leading a mission and a ministry that served homeless and those with food scarcity on a daily basis. And this was yoked to the church. In order to unyoke it and stand alone as a nonprofit and develop a strategic plan and a way to move forward for fundraising and to really live into the ministry, she attended this program. She participated in this program. This now has been unyoked from the church. It is now a standalone nonprofit. It would not have happened had she not obtained the skills that she needed through this program in order to lead and move. And she is now, I mean, she is the leader of this nonprofit that serves the community in this area in southern Minnesota at this time. I have another pastor who, am I out of time yet, Alicia?
No, you're good.
I had another pastor who she developed a generosity and team, not a stewardship team, a generosity team. And she was very instrumental in strengthening the financial health of that church. And stewardship and generosity was woven into the culture, into the life of the church. It was not the stewardship Sunday that was a standalone. It was woven into 12 months of pure generosity pouring out into the church, into the community. So what I want to say about all of these, and I have many more I could tell you, is yes, they are a product of the program. They're also a product of what I call cross-pollination. They were learning from each other. So many of these experiences have been shared with each other, not just within the United Methodist denomination, but across other denominations. That's been what's so beautiful about this experience, is because, you know, we can learn from other clergy that might live into their pastoral leadership in a different way. And so it's a tremendous learning opportunity as well. I have tapped into many of our clergy to provide leadership to other pastors, whether it's at onboarding of new clergy, provisional training. I have brought them in to share perhaps their stories or some really practical skills that they could share. So pastors teaching other pastors where they can share their real life experiences, I think goes a long way into the culture of an organization. So it's not just about what happens to that pastor or what happens to that church, it's about what happens to the system when that starts bleeding into other opportunities in other areas. So I will stop there. I know I went over my time, but you could tell I'm passionate about this, but it's because of what I am learning and hearing from these individual clergy who have really grown through the experience. Thanks,
Fantastic.
Alicia.
Thank you, Diane. And like I mentioned, we have been working with Diane and our partners in the Dakotas and Minnesota since the beginning. So we've appreciated all the ways that they have supported the work that we're doing here. If you're on the call this morning and you are a decision maker or a leader in the denomination that you might be serving with, note that Dakota Wesleyan has a lot of ways and means that we can work in partnership with you. Each of our partnerships works a little bit differently. In all cases, whether that's Diane or Deb or Mark, each of these states and regions and places has a little bit different ways that they want to structure the recruitment of students and the financial support of the students, scholarshiping those students in the program. And so I'm going to introduce Missy in just a moment. She's our admissions and enrollment coordinator here for the program. But just know that we can work with you separately and differently depending on your needs as a denomination or a region. So thank you again, Diane. I think we're at a point in time in the webinar this morning where we want to make time for some questions. So you can post those in the chat. Before we do that, just some logistics for the program that you're probably all wondering. One of those is, how much does this cost? Like I mentioned, it's 21 graduate credit hours, and it does cost $7,000 a year. So that is a one fee that covers all of it, the classes and the coaching and the face-to-face gatherings. The hotel and travel arrangements are not included in that cost for those face-to-face gatherings, but almost every other cost is absorbed through that tuition fee. So $7,000 is the annual fee. And Missy Luthold is with us, and I'll post her contact information. You can work with Missy to get enrolled. And we are accepting applications now for class of 2022-2023. So we will begin in July with a 2-day face-to-face gathering that serves as both an opportunity to network. There's a bit of crossover. So we have our completion ceremony for those who are finishing at that time too. And that way new incoming scholars can learn from outgoing scholars. In those gatherings, we feature presentations about applied projects. We have keynote speakers. And for new scholars, it serves as the orientation as well. So a great opportunity to network face-to-face, and then almost everything else is done virtually and online. But that gathering happens in July, and that will happen on the Dakota Wesleyan campus in July 2022. We have the program divided based on cohort. So we try to assemble cohorts based on regions, and then they go through their learning in those cohorts. So for instance, this year we have a cohort of, we call them the Northern region and the Southern region. And so we have a group of scholars in South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, and Michigan that are learning in a section or cohort online. And we have a group from Louisiana, Missouri, and Oklahoma who are learning in the same way. 21 graduate credit hours, and 18 of those can be applied towards our MBA program. It's also a very unique thing that we've done at Dakota Wesleyan, and several scholars have taken the opportunity to apply those 18 credits towards their MBA. And that means only 18 credits left to go in the MBA. And I worked with the MBA director just a couple of years ago to overhaul our MBA program so that there's a pedagogy alignment between the two programs. That means that the courses that they take on the MBA side are also practical, relevant, and applied. We also use a lot of great guest speakers and guest lectures. And students have some flexibility in the courses that they want to take in that program to meet their needs. And so scholars might take courses, including coaching. There's a coaching course in that program. There are courses around financial accounting if they want to take a financial accounting course. We have courses around change management and conflict management. We also have digital communications and 21st century marketing course in that program too, which some scholars find tremendously helpful. So those are the kinds of experiences that they'll have if they go on to complete the other 18 credits in their MBA. All right. Now we're out of time for Q&A, and I can answer questions from the chats. Andrea is monitoring those, and all of our guests are still on. So if you have a direct question for them, you can ask there. We have one question coming from Deb. So Deb has asked, have the promotional materials been updated with the new program title? So this is really hot off the presses. We went back and forth on title and reasons for that. And like I mentioned at the top of the call, I like to call things what they are. And this is very practical and relevant, and part of the reason we went with that change. And our marketing team has been hard at work developing materials. For everyone on this call this morning, we will be emailing you. If we don't have your email address already, please put it in the chat. We'll be emailing you a flyer, a brand new flyer that is designed to help promote the program, and it has all the important details and information, including, I think, at least one quote from one of the participants here. We have a couple of other quotes and testimonials from other students. And Bishop Constanza from the ELCA is also featured on that flyer as well. So we'll send that to you after the call, and then you'll have that. You can find us online, both if you go to www.dwu.edu/NPCL, Nonprofit Church Leadership, or /PCL. So we have the redirect set up for both of those as we're making this transition. Good question. And we'll continue to move forward with other information with updated details on that title change as well. Lauren has asked a question if we'd like to have someone talk with our clergy about setting up a generosity team versus the stewardship team. Would that be possible? And yes, I think Lauren, that would be possible. You can reach out to me and we can discuss further details about that. I think Diane may have mentioned several examples of projects. One of the things that our instructor covers in her financial development course is the process of setting up a stewardship team. And I think generosity team is probably a close cousin to that. And you can describe it either way, but I know that Thea, the instructor for that course, would be glad to share resources and materials about that as well. Any other questions? You can unmute yourself if you have one for myself, Bill, Corey, Elsie, Diane, or Missy.
Alicia, while people are thinking about their questions, I don't know if you mentioned it, I failed to mention it, but we have had others who are not pastors participate in the program successfully. We had 2 of our camping directors participate, and it was actually extremely beneficial to them. And the instructors did a beautiful job of adjusting where they needed to. There weren't that many places. And we currently have one of our annual conference staff members also participating. So, you know, you can broaden your thinking about who can benefit in terms of ministry leaders beyond pastors in some situations.
Yeah, like Diane mentioned, we've had camping directors who have participated in the program and have made some adjustments there for them. And I feel like they've learned just as much and have, I think, at least one, if not both, from last year's cohort are actually in the MBA program now as well.
Alicia, I have a question for Diane.
Yes.
Diane, have you kind of settled in on kind of what the ideal candidate looks like for this program in terms of how many years they've been a church pastor or a nonprofit leader?
Well, I went in with an assumption that has been kind of tossed out over the
That's
last
where I
4
am.
years. Yes.
That's where I am.
So, you know, we went in initially saying, all right, only our high potential clergy should, you know, tap into this and have this experience. But that is not necessarily true because, you know, a pastor might come in as not high potential, but become high potential as a result of that experience. I think it does help, however, to have a few years of pastoral leadership in under appointment or in a church. I would say about 3 years is ideal in order to really be able to understand the application. Often clergy are in their first year of appointment or even year 2. They're drinking through you know, a fire hydrant, trying to acclimate to ministry, to build relationship, to understand what their role is, and layering this type of experience on top of that most could not. There might be a few, but most could not. And we try to stay away from anybody in the first 3 years of ministry. I'm sure Elsie or Corey might be able to comment on that readiness as well. But that's kind of our thinking, 3 years at least before going into the program.
Yeah, Corey or Elsie, I think that's an appropriate question. You know, the program is challenging and it does take time. And so do you have any advice there? Ideal candidates or ideal scholars for the program?
A lot of it depends on capacity. Each person is individual. Each person is different. And so one person, 3 years is probably right. Another person, first year is good. Others, it may be longer. It's individual assessment.
Elsie's agreeing. I saw a head nod. Yeah, it really does depend on capacity. You know, some of my favorite quotes have come from pastors who have been in ministry for more than 25 years. And so we've had some pastors who have been in the program who are very senior pastors, and they've learned just as much, if not more, and have been able to do some pretty transformative projects and programming in their congregations as a result as well. Good question. Thank you, Deb. Any other questions this morning?
Not a question, Alicia, but a quick comment regarding what Deb just brought up and the ideal student. What the coaches have found, maybe this year more than others, is with a newly appointed clergy, and they're in their first year to be part of this program. There's a lot of stuff that would say not good timing. So I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth. They really don't even know their church yet, and they're getting started with putting a project in place that will benefit that church. What we think about is directionally, what would that project, you don't have to know everything. And sometimes it's good not to know everything because you get to ask great questions. What we're doing is equipping these pastors to ask those kinds of questions maybe sooner in their ministry than they might have in a regular new appointment, if that makes any sense. Just how to ask those critical edge thinking, thought-provoking, I don't know everything type questions, which helps them build, I think, a really remarkable difference maker to their church faster than maybe what they thought they could do. The second part of it is I want to echo the more seasoned clergy. They've been there for a while. They're not done yet. I mean, I had someone tell me very clearly, this is almost reborn for me, my verb to learn more and to be curious about things in a new kind of a way. So they're not done yet. And they have plenty of runway to continue to grow both personally and professionally. So a couple of things we've experienced as coaches.
We have one more question I'm going to answer from the chat around auditing courses and picking and choosing classes. And because of the cohort nature of the program, and Diane had mentioned the learning that happens between people who are participating in the program, we don't allow the opportunity to come in and go out from the program itself, from the 21 credit certificate program. So you start in July and finish the following July. We have built in some flexibility though into the program over the last 2 years because we know that capacity is a lot sometimes, or pastors are dealing with a lot sometimes. And so we have built in some things to make it a little bit more flexible and adaptable. One of those is that now scholars have the opportunity to both take the courses credit, no credit, which means there's not quite as much pressure to try to get A's and B's in the program. We still have some demands there and requirements, but it is a little bit less stressful if you're taking a course as credit, no credit. And then all of the instructors in the program, we've done a lot of training with them about being flexible for pastors and providing grace in a very balanced way so that they're still maintaining that accountability and structure, but there is grace. And so in some cases, a pastor will say, this assignment that is requested for this course, I've already done that, or it's not really applicable in my context. So can we come up with something else that would meet the objectives? And yes, the answer to that is always yes. We can come up with an alternative for you to meet that objective. And if there's lots of funerals and weddings and other stressors that are happening, that takes precedent and priority over what we're doing. And so instructors and coaches do have grace, and we can build in some flexibility in the courses for extensions and other things that pastors might need within reason. So that's the short answer to that question is no, we do want you to go through the program with your cohort, but there are some built-in flexibilities there. When you get to the MBA side, there is some more ability to choose which courses you're going to take in those 7-week rotations. All right. Well, one more slide for me to share with you, just so that you have it, and we will send out a message post webinar this morning, and you can have this information then as well. But here's that contact detail for you, Dakota Wesleyan /PCL. My contact information is there, alicia.vincent@dwu.edu. Most people can be found that way. So missy.leuthill.dwu.edu. Bill is short for William. So if you're trying to get a hold of Bill, it is william.lewis@dwu.edu. But we're all available to answer questions and engage in further conversation about the Practical Church Leadership Program. Thank you all so much for participating today. Andrea and I will be sending some follow-up information if we have your email. We'll stay on for a couple minutes for those of you who might have additional questions, but we are grateful for the time that you spent with us. We pray that you have a wonderful and blessed Thanksgiving season with friends and families wherever you're at. And as you're heading into Advent this year, we also pray that it is a wonderful, restful, and joyous season and celebration. Thank you all so much for your time this morning, and have a wonderful day.